Okay, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we have another Q&A. You guys submitted some really interesting questions. So to go straight into it, the first person asked about 3 questions in one. So I'll just look at the first question to give more airtime to everyone else's question. So it says, I asked this as a casual fashion lover. I don't work in the industry, I work in healthcare. But I've become very disillusioned about fashion to a degree. For instance, Kylie Jenner won some Innovator of the Year award for her new brand. Like how? I'm sure there's tons of brands doing truly innovative things, but Kylie Jenner name gets headlines, so enough said. So yeah, I mean, to address that, and if you don't know what this person is referring to, Kylie Jenner recently won the Brand Innovator of the Year awards at the Wall Street Journal Awards, I think, from this year. And I think what was so hilarious about the whole thing is her brand Kai literally only debuted really recently. And when she was nominated for the award, her brand hadn't even launched. And I made a TikTok about this, and I was saying that ultimately these things come down to business. And it's just a case of Kylie Jenner has a strong PR team that can get her these awards, and these awards kind of help legitimize her brand and legitimize her business. And in return, what these award shows get is they're getting a big name like Kylie Jenner. Because to be honest, I've never cared or even heard about the Wall Street Journal Awards, to be fair, until now. Maybe because Kylie Jenner is there and we're all talking about this now. So from a PR standpoint, all of us are talking about it. And to them, good publicity or bad publicity is good publicity. And so I just think these things are all businesses. It just reminds me of an old Kanye West interview where he was saying that there was a music award, and he didn't want to say, but he said there was a music award that basically told him, if you attend the show, we'll give you the awards, because they want him to go there. They want the attention that him being there and his presence there can bring from a media perspective. So from that standpoint, it makes sense. But what I will say is that definitely removes and sort of weakens the credibility of a lot of these award shows when this is what happens, because no one will tell you that Kai's brand, the Kai brand, Kylie Jenner's brand, is innovative in any way. I mean, it just came out. There's absolutely nothing innovative about it. I mean, when you look at the clothes, it looks like Demna Gvasalia's Balenciaga, literally, like, to the styling, the way the clothes are put together, the shape of the clothes is literally just Balenciaga, but with cheaper and worse fabrics. And this wouldn't be the first time that Kylie Jenner pulls off a sort of stunt in this vein. Do you guys remember when Kylie Jenner was named as the youngest self-made billionaire on Forbes, and then like a month later it came out that apparently they falsified tax documents and actually Kylie Jenner was not a billionaire? Like, that's what these guys do. These guys just try to create all these like PR stunts to get their name in the news. It's just kind of their MO. But I think an even bigger story about this whole Kylie Jenner's brand Kai is actually the Betsy Johnson story. So for guys that don't know, Betsy Johnson is a really cool designer who apparently wanted to work with Kylie Jenner and sent Kylie Jenner some of the concepts for Kai. And Kylie Jenner essentially just copied the concepts. And that was basically her first drop in her brand, which is absolutely insane. And Betsy Johnson showed all the receipts, all the emails, all those things. And it's just sad, really, because this reminds me of when I was at CSM. So for guys that don't know, at St. St. Martin's, in your 3rd year, you have to do a year in industry, which means you have to go and like work for a brand. If you're a journalist, then you go and work for a magazine. The designers go and intern at different brands. So because a lot of my friends obviously were on the design courses, in their year in industry, all of them worked at different brands. I had brands that worked at Balenciaga, Prada, Raf Simons, like all the brands you can think of. I probably had a friend that worked there. And it's absolutely insane the amount of people whose designs got copied. Because I know these guys, they're my friends. I've seen their work throughout their whole time at CSM. I know what their aesthetic is. I know about a lot of their ideas. And of course, when you're applying to intern at these brands, you have to submit a portfolio, which will inherently have a lot of your ideas. And I remember after the year in industry, when we're in final year, and a lot of people were literally complaining about how their ideas have been stolen. and like showing me examples of like, oh yeah, you remember when I did this in like second year? And I'm like, yeah, I literally remember. And then I just see it on the runway for a brand. And it's absolutely insane. I just think the whole fashion system is broken. I think even the fact that designers have to make so many collections a year, it's leaking creativity, and it's what is pushing them to copy people's ideas and steal people's ideas. Of course, Kylie Jenner is not part of that, because Kylie Jenner just has no fashion design talent whatsoever. So that's like besides the point. But that's why this question where a person was saying that they feel a bit disillusioned with fashion, I can see how that can happen. I mean, sometimes being someone that works within the system, there's just some things where you're just questioning, like, should I still work in this industry? Like, I'll give you a good example. Like, a lot of you might not know, but big awards, let's say an award like the LVMH prize, right? People assume that every year designers apply to the LVMH prize, and then the LVMH team goes through all these applications, and then they pick the best designers and blah, blah, blah. And they do, I guess, technically do that, but most fashion awards shows, like these fashion awards, what they actually do is they reach out to designers that they want to shortlist. So every year, they might reach out unofficially to a lot of different designers and be like, oh, we recommend that you apply this year. We recommend that you apply this year. So if you're just some random person applying to a lot of these awards, really and truly, the only time they're even going to look at your application is if all the people that they wanted there and all the people that they reached out to and wanted to put forward didn't like enter that year, then they might consider your application. So it's just so unfair. Like, and a lot of fashion is like that. When you work in the industry, you realize that these things are actually not fair. They're not done the normal way, the way that everyone assumes. And so sometimes you're just so disillusioned, and like even people just make so many assumptions about the industry that are wrong. But I get it, because unless you work in the industry, you don't know. But it's very easy to become disillusioned when you see brands copying your friends' designs, award shows where really, really up and coming designers that don't have a huge name, basically have no chance because they weren't put forward to be shortlisted for these awards in the first place. So the next question is, seems like we're entering an era of hyper expensive luxury with Phoebe and new Burberry prices, and then in brackets, I think Chanel increased as well. What does this mean for brands, especially new ones, now that the upper echelons of fashion are becoming harder to attain? Now, I mean, this is an amazing, amazing question. And it's actually, this is my MO, because I'm always reading about like fashion business and what's going on the business side of fashion, which I think is what differentiates me from a lot of other YouTube channels. But what I will say is almost every single luxury brand has increased their prices. Now, there are the more generic reasons why they would increase their prices. If you think of the pandemic and you think of the fact that a lot of brands lost sales, and I remember when the pandemic just finished, a lot of them increased their prices, and their reasoning was that they're making up for lost sales during the pandemic. And then obviously when they made up the sales and exponentially increased their profits, they just never brought it down. Typical capitalism, right? But there's also that. There's also inflation. The cost of raw materials is actually more expensive, obviously. Everything's more expensive. So inevitably, everything goes up. It's just more daunting to like just normal people like me, or maybe people watching this, because every time inflation happens and the cost of raw materials goes up and the cost of everything else goes up, the one thing that doesn't go up is our wages, right? So everything is just inherently more expensive. And then on top of that, in general, there has been a shift to just things being more expensive in general. I mean, I was reading this amazing Financial Times article on kind of Daniel Lee and what he's been doing at Burberry from a business perspective, but also from kind of what he's done with his collections, the inspiration behind his collections. A really, really good article. And they talk about how much the Burberry prices have gone up. And they talk about the fact that Daniel Lee is this designer that designed at Bottega. And when he moved to Burberry, he made the pricing align close to what he was used to at Bottega, which is quite interesting, that Burberry kind of want to associate themselves with Bottega from a price perspective. So that's why from Daniel Lee's first collection at Burberry, he just raised the prices exponentially. It was insane. And I'm actually going to read a quote by a luxury analyst called Luca Solca about, in the Financial Times article, about sort of Daniel Lee just raising the prices at Burberry after the first collection. And he said, Burberry is trying to price up to look as if it is in the Premier League. I wouldn't want this to end like its former high-end runway line, Prorsum, a very high initial price and very high end-of-season discounts. And it's kind of true, but if you look at the financial reports of Burberry, they're doing quite decent. So I think that this increase in price isn't necessarily going to affect their bottom line. And the funny thing I've actually noticed across the line, because this is something that has happened at Bottega. Bottega was always expensive anyway, but it's way more expensive now. And I think everyone is just increasing their prices because for the longest time, fashion, especially luxury fashion, kind of, for lack of a better term, became very watered down. And what that meant is rich people always want to have, or the upper society, they always want to have a way of being able to differentiate themselves from us commoners. And if the price point is too accessible, those people will go away from those brands and then find other brands that are way more expensive that are inaccessible to normal people like me, right? So by these brands increasing their prices, they're bringing back a lot of these super, super wealthy luxury customers who will now buy into it because they actually are happy about price being the biggest differentiator. And for the longest time, I always used to be confused that why would people buy these clothes that are less quality, but they're more expensive as time goes on. And then I just realized the more I meet, like, work in fashion and meet the kind of customers that buy haute couture pieces and stuff, they actually don't care. Like, majority of them don't care. They don't know what good quality even means or looks like or feels like. They just want something that shows that they're rich. They move in their high upper echelons and society and circles where people will just be like, oh my God, you're wearing this dress, it costs the amount. And that's kind of what is cool about it, not even the design itself. And to be honest, when you look at the stats, generally across the board, the prices of luxury goods between 2019 and 2022 went up by 25%. So it's definitely true that these brands are making huge profits. But I think one thing that is good to mention is these companies are very savvy. A lot of these companies are billion-dollar companies, huge conglomerates that own all these brands, and they have the most business-savvy financial analysts and the smartest people working for them. So these people are not stupid. If it didn't make sense to increase their prices, they wouldn't do it. So the only explanation for why they can increase their prices that much and they're still making even more profits than they were is just because they know the market enough to know that if we increase these prices, like I said earlier, we're going to attract these very, very high, wealthy clients and customers. So these brands know what they're doing. I think sometimes when these brands increase their prices and people are like, oh my God, that makes no sense. But like, these people literally have like financial analysts that work for these brands. And that's why even Phoebe Philo's brand, like was mentioned in the question, she has come into fashion aligning her price point alongside a lot of those brands have increased their prices over the years. So we're talking brands like the Burberrys, the Bottegas, the Jill Sanders. A lot of people would argue that, you know, Jill Sander has an aesthetic that was similar to what Phoebe Philo did at Celine. I wouldn't say it's the same aesthetic because at the end of the day, Jill Sander, that aesthetic had been cemented before Phoebe Philo was even designing clothes. And then you have brands like Louis Vuitton just making some insanely priced stuff, like the Millionaire bag that Pharrell Williams was talking about when he had his debut show. I remember he had an interview on YouTube that I watched where he was talking about this bag for Louis Vuitton that cost $1 million. But it's actually gone on the website. And a lot of people are like going crazy about it on TikTok because obviously these things, I don't know why this happens in fashion, but like Pharrell Williams literally did an interview about this ages ago. But I think maybe because it's just released and people have seen it on the website, people are being outraged.
Every part on the bag is, this is different. This one is called the Millionaire. Yeah. It's called a Millionaire.
for a reason.
Yeah, well, it comes with millionaires,
Oh.
and every bit of the bag is gold. Like the zipper, the teeth on the zipper is gold. All the hardware, every rivet. This is gold. This is gold. Obviously, paved in diamonds. This chain is real. Feel it.
Heavy on it.
Yes, sir. Yeah. It has a real strap, but like, you know,
Just like that.
so be it, so be it.
So be it, so be it.
Yeah, you know.
Is a bag ever going to be worth $1 million? No. But are people still going to buy it? Yes. Why? Because I own this bag that cost $1 million. It's just the way people view luxury, unfortunately. So yeah, I feel like we're definitely in an era of super, super, super highly priced luxury fashion. And I don't think that's going to change so long as these brands continue to make a crazy profit. And this last question is, what is your favorite piece of clothing that you own? And this is a really good question. I brought something here. So, as most of you guys know, Ann Demeulemeester is my favorite fashion designer. I have a lot of pieces from Ann Demeulemeester. It's not the designer that I own the most of. The designer I own the most of probably is Rick Owens. But in terms of who's my favorite designer from a design standpoint, her philosophy, what she stands for, everything like that, Ann Demeulemeester is definitely my favorite designer. And she's one of the members of the Antwerp Six, as most of you know. If you don't know who the Antwerp Six are, I've actually done an interview, and I'll leave a card in the corner, with Walter van Bernendonk, who's actually one of the Antwerp Six, and he tells all about the story. But to summarize, in the 1980s, these Belgian designers who studied at the Royal Academy of Fine Arts in Antwerp, they went to London, and they went to a British trade fair, a fashion trade fair. And when they went there, they showcased their designs, and then they became famous, and they became stockists at Barney's, and a Barney's buyer saw their collection, was really impressed, and the rest is history, right? But what you might not know is, because the Antwerp Six at the time, and you'll hear this from the interview with Walter van Bernendonk, they were just traveling a lot in Europe and having fun. So a lot of the time, sometimes if they hadn't been back to Belgium, they wouldn't have a whole clothing collection to take with them. So in this London trade fair, Ann Demeulemeester actually only had a collection of sunglasses. She didn't actually have a collection of clothing to show at the time, which a lot of you might not know. So what I actually have in my collection is a pair of the sunglasses that was part of Ann Demeulemeester's famous fashion collection, I guess, of sunglasses of the moment that made them the Antwerp Six, essentially. And how I actually got these was, there's a store in Antwerp called Labels Inc. And she knows that I love Ann Demeulemeester. So when I went to the store, she was like, because you love Ann Demeulemeester and I have all this archive stuff that I don't know what to do with, I feel like you would appreciate this. And when she brought this out, I literally lost my shit. I was like, there's no way someone is going to give me something like this for free. So I literally protect this with my life. Let me wear them. They're kind of weird to wear. They don't really fit me that nicely. And because these sunglasses are so old, they're kind of like a collector's item. Even the hinges are a bit dodgy. But I'll just wear them for the sake of the video. We'll just wear it. So thank you. Shout out to Ann, and shout out to Labels Inc. for gifting this to me, because this is literally my favorite piece in my collection. And it's not even a piece of clothing. It's literally a pair of sunglasses. But it's just what it means. The fact that I own an important piece of the Ann Demeulemeester history is something that I cherish a lot. So yeah, this is definitely 100% my favorite item of clothing. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts below. If you want access to extra content, then the link to my Patreon is in the description below. And also, if you want to learn about fashion more effectively, I have an ebook on my website that will sort of teach you the basics you need to know when starting to learn about fashion. I always forget to mention my ebook, and every time I tell people, when I meet people that I have an ebook, people are like, no way. And these are people that have seen my videos, so maybe I just don't talk about it enough. So yeah, you can also go on my website, thefashionarchivemag.com, and check out my ebook. So yeah, I'll be back with another video very soon.